In other education news, about 15% of the student population in New Mexico participates in some form of bilingual education. In our latest Education Desk report, producer Sarah Gustavus sits down with educators to talk about what bilingual education looks like in different schools and how proposed changes to bilingual education in our state might impact students and communities.
I'm joined today by Victoria Tafoya, Director of Operations for Dual Language Education of New Mexico. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Also, Damian Vergara Wilson, Coordinator of Spanish as a Heritage Language Program at the University of New Mexico. Thanks for being here.
Good morning.
Victoria, I'm going to start with you. You have experience teaching in a bilingual classroom. How have the models for bilingual education changed over the years, maybe in the past 5 to 10 years?
New Mexico has the wonderful opportunity of offering 5 different bilingual program models. And so school districts from around the state have the opportunity to choose which bilingual program model best fits their community and the context within their community.
And those 5 models?
So the 5 program models that school districts have the opportunity to select from include the enrichment model, which focuses on students learning a target language. They don't have to be English language learners to participate in that model. We have the maintenance model, which supports the maintenance of the target language as well as supporting English development. Our dual language education programs focus on an equity of languages and offer programs that could have 50% of the day up to 90% of the day in the target language, focuses on rich content in the language. We have our heritage language programs, which many of our indigenous tribes select as their program model to really focus on the uniqueness of their communities as well as maintaining and supporting the heritage language of the program. And then transitional is the last program model that's available with an emphasis on supporting the primary home language until a student reaches English proficiency.
Those are all very different. I think a lot of folks often want to know, well, what's the best model? What works the best? Can you even compare them when you're looking at what's working and what's not?
It's very difficult to compare because it is so unique. Programs are so unique to the communities. Research out there, by multiple researchers in the field of bilingual education will indicate that dual language education, because of the way it's structured in an equity of languages around content and developing content vocabulary and rich content proficiency, let's say in mathematics in the target language or social studies in the target language, students who participate in high quality dual language education programs do better on standardized assessments, and long term, even English speaking peers who are learning Spanish, let's say as an example, in a dual language program tend to outperform their monolingual speaking peers.
Because they're talking about math, talking about social studies or other topics in that language.
And they demonstrate proficiency in both languages.
Any kind of tension or resistance around New Mexico in these programs?
Gosh, I think New Mexico historically has always had some tension, yet incredible advocacy around bilingual education. Our Article 23, our Bilingual Multicultural Education Act, really highlights the language rights of students in New Mexico in having opportunities to participate in bilingual education. There's, of course, the ebb and flow of the national perspective and which language is the primary language of our country. And I think New Mexico has always held strong to believing in the multilingualism, multicultural aspects of our people.
And Damian, for folks who aren't familiar with Spanish as a heritage language program, what's different about those classes at UNM?
Well, so if the casual observer were to look in through a window into the classroom, they might not see a radical difference. What happens is that we begin with our orientation towards the student. And first of all, and I think that from our conversation earlier, we both share this, that in our program, we view students as an asset and a resource. They bring with them funds of knowledge. They bring with them very rich cultural competency. I've always said that, and it's very hard to convince administrators that half the battle is to just get this group together. And so when you have a group of people with a similar linguistic history, they suddenly feel at home and they can connect to one another.
Because who is eligible to be in this program?
So we have to be very careful in our recruitment, and especially in such a great, diverse state like New Mexico, we identify heritage language learners as students who have a cultural community or heritage connection to the language. And so we do what we call very broad recruitment. Other programs might recruit more on proficiency, where they're looking for people who have already native-like proficiency. And you see a lot of those programs more in like Chicago, New York. However, what we do is because we've been in this game for a much longer time than other states that have significant Latino populations brushing up against the English population, English-speaking population. We've been in this game longer, and so we've had many more generations go through language loss than a lot of places that are receiving, large immigrant groups. And so, for us, we're looking at students who maybe their grandparents spoke, and it's a continuum right up to students with native or native-like proficiency in the language. And so, the first thing to do is to once again really address the fact that students bring with them tremendous cultural competency, linguistic competency. In our orientation towards the students, when you're learning language as a foreign or second language, there's a fairly natural order of progression in which it makes sense to learn the language. You learn basic things first, present tense first, etc. However, with heritage language learners who have been exposed to the language in the home, their community, typically you find that they don't acquire things in a linear fashion. And so, getting back to the original point, we identify from a wide swath, especially because in New Mexico, since we've been in contact with English-speaking cultures for so long, there's a lot of cultural hybridity. And so, we, in some survey data that I did a number of years ago, we even had about 12% of our population claim Native American, a significant population claiming Anglo heritage. And so, it's a very wide spectrum that really encompasses the New Mexico linguistic experience.
So maybe we're coming in, we're talking about grammar, maybe some more specific grammar if people have been speaking informally in their community. But are you also talking about culture in the classroom? Is that a different part
Fundamentally,
of the program?
yes, absolutely, absolutely. A lot of our, a lot of our content revolves around culture, and a lot of our content is actually generated by the students themselves. While we can supply, a great deal of content from our own, academic studies, we really try to do things that have the students bring it in themselves too. And so, as a social scientist myself, I have them, of course, gathering informally, linguistic data from the onset. And so, for example, in our beginning level class, right now, we have our students go out with a series of images that they show to different members of their communities to get the different terms. Like if you show an image of a turkey, for example, you can get many, many, many answers here in New Mexico. Cocono, pavo, huijalo, torque, etc. And the idea is to show that we all come from specific communities that are rooted in a specific place, and we all have our own terms, and that there isn't necessarily one term that's better than the other, which is a fundamental lesson for heritage language learners, because often, our social and linguistic history dictates that, we've gone through many generations of being told that we speak wrong, or that, Spanish itself is bad, and so there's a lot of, sociolinguistic and emotional baggage that we have to overcome, and so little things like that really help. But once again, it's a very wide swath of the New Mexican population.
Absolutely. And Victoria, your organization provides some support to educators who are trying to create learning spaces for multicultural students. This isn't just about Spanish speakers. What are some common needs for bilingual students from different communities, maybe even our other immigrant and refugee communities here in New Mexico?
Yes, dual language education in New Mexico has a great opportunity to support New Mexico schools, but we also travel and we're able to support inner city Chicago schools as well as Elgin, Illinois. We're out in Oregon, as well as Denver Public Schools, down in El Paso supporting schools, Arlington, Virginia as well. And so we learn a lot. We're able to support innovative districts and schools that are focusing on dual language education. Here in New Mexico, we support many different schools, from those down the street in Albuquerque South Valley right now. With the Kellogg grant, we're able to support the Rio Grande cluster. 2 elementary schools, 2 middle schools, and Rio. And we're looking at a pre-K-12 dual language education pathway. So we're supporting Albuquerque Public Schools in realizing the pathway for students in dual language education, with the goal of students attaining their biliteracy seal on their diploma.
And so students in bilingual programs may be speaking the language all day. In New Mexico, maybe that's Spanish, but then they go home and maybe their parents don't speak it or don't speak it fluently. Does that hurt their learning process?
Absolutely not. You know, I think the love of the asset, seeing that it's an asset, encouraging your children to take what they've learned in school and share it with siblings at home who may not be in the program, or with the parents, where students can become the teachers of the language at home, is so important. So a parent does not need to be bilingual or have that background in the language to continue to support their child in a bilingual education program. There's also, you know, even a quick consideration of watching their favorite TV shows and seeing if watching it in another language is an option, is a way of supporting language development at home. Selecting where you might attend a cultural event in the community that would provide additional exposure to the target language is also important. For our Indigenous communities, our organization is now supporting 4 of our Indigenous communities in developing a framework for either language revitalization or maintenance of the language. And so we're working with Santa Clara community in developing a dual language Tewa English program, Navajo Elementary out in Gallup McKinley, To'Hajiilee, and then Torreon with their Dene speaking students. And so it's incredible work, all with realizing and acknowledging the incredible linguistic and cultural assets that our students bring to the school and enhance the program that's there.
As Damian just mentioned a minute ago, some parents were maybe told not to speak their language, or there might be some, I've talked to people who feel some embarrassment and some hurt in that. Do you hear parents talking about that, about how they feel about their children being able to learn that language now, even though they weren't able to?
I mean, it's the New Mexico story, you know, with my parents, my grandparents, you know, being hit with the ruler on the hand for speaking, or mouths washed out with soap for speaking the language. That has unfortunately been part of the history of New Mexico, the linguistic history. In bilingual education programs, there oftentimes are conversations that administrators or others need to have with parents to realize that a student, it's a benefit to a student to be bilingual, to seek bilingualism, to recapture a heritage language that may be lost, because without language, we lose that sense of culture, that sense of people. And so, you know, Wilfred Araccio from Zuni, you know, often says, and I use his quote many times, that he doesn't want to be part of the generation that contributed to the loss of language and culture. You know, and so our goal, our mission really is to support bilingual education programs, high quality programs that recognize the linguistic and cultural assets of our students.
And Damian, do you find that the students you work with, does learning the language help them in other areas of their academic study? Does it have a broader influence on their work at UNM?
Oh yeah, of course. Across the board, one of our biggest student populations that graduates with a degree in Spanish and Portuguese right now is the double major in biology and Spanish. That number of students outnumbers just simple Spanish majors. And so, learning, right now we're seeing huge population shifts in the United States. New Mexico being the first Hispanic majority state, followed by California, soon to be followed by Arizona and Texas. Demographers believe by 2040. And so, I think that a lot of people are really looking around and seeing, the Spanish language is much more valuable professionally. And, there's a million different ways, that learning Spanish interacts with other facets of your education, be it, if you're studying English, maybe, you want to write bilingually. But I think just in general, it's seen as an enhancement. Another way that the department in general enhances education is by offering classes in medical Spanish right now, which has obvious crossover with heritage language students as well. So,
when you said biology, I thought pre-med or folks who want to go into the health field.
Yes, exactly. We find a lot of people who are in pre-med, and so so there is a lot of impetus out there for gaining language proficiency. And so the one thing that I really enjoy about participating in this group is that Victoria and myself are really advocating not just for what happens in the classroom, but larger societal vision that values Spanish language and Spanish speakers and their culture.
Victoria, the Public Education Department is considering some changes in those 5 models that you talked about. What do you think parents or community members need to know right now? They can give some feedback, right?
Absolutely. There's been 2 public hearings being held. There's been quite an opposition to the proposed changes because it limits, takes the 5 bilingual program models and reduces it to 3, which we believe limits the choice that a community has to select from, believing that the community needs to select a program that best meets the context of their community, their students. We believe the 5 program models should remain. There's some other concerns within the proposed regulation changes that we feel wouldn't strengthen our bilingual program, and what we're hoping as groups of advocates and parents in the community, our Indigenous communities that have been very outspoken about the proposed changes, is that we look at the bilingual education changes and work together with the public ed department to really be future oriented and future thinking about what we want for bilingual program students in the state of New Mexico. There's cultural impacts if we believe, look to the future, but also economic advantages that could, put our state at an advantage to really focus and support bilingual education as an option for all New Mexico students, as our state constitution hoped it would be.
Well, I know there's so much more we could talk about, but we're going to have to stop there. Thank you so much for coming by and talking about some of these issues with us this week.
Yes, thank you.
A pleasure.